Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So in last week's video, I talked about what to look at if you're considering the Barnes & Noble premium membership. And in this video, this is kind of like a follow-up to one of the things I mentioned in last week's video. But these are 18 tips for best utilizing a Barnes & Noble premium membership. Now, disclaimer, as you saw in the photos right before this, I am not trying to promote consumerist culture. Look at my first and last tips. To rephrase, I'm not trying to... words. I have this all typed out, so if you see me looking down, that's what's going on. I'm not trying to Jesus, words. I'm not trying to promote thoughtless consumerist culture. Like, something I've been talking about recently on my channel is putting thought into where our money is going to, being conscious of where it's going to. And one of my recent it's not done. Okay. One of my recent things has been trying to avoid Amazon, although I know that for many people, Amazon is their only option, so that excluded. These videos are kind of marketed at, sort of pseudo-marketed at people who have more options outside of Amazon. I am utilizing this video as a way to be thoughtful while a way to be thoughtful about your purchasing while best utilizing the Barnes & Noble premium membership. So that's what this is about. And plus, I think a lot of us who have had the Barnes & Noble premium membership do have ways to best utilize it. So if you have any tips or tricks that you use that I don't mention in this video, please comment down below. I'll also mention that again at the end of the video. So to get into these tips, to dive right in, my first tip is to spend at least $40 and not necessarily in one trip. Like I mentioned in last week's video, they have the $39.99 as a way to make you think it's not $40. It's less than $40. It's still $39.99 and it's only a cent away from $40. So you want to spend $40 to at least break even, and that's like a minimum of what you should spend to break even. And to the best way you can think of it is like kind of like, even though you're not making a profit, but it's like to make a profit from it, even though you're spending money. But you want to make it so that that $40 that you put towards the Barnes & Noble membership isn't wasted. So that's why you want to spend at least $40 to break even, and again, not in one trip, because books can cost a lot. So maybe one trip you get one paperback that's like $12, another trip you get a hardback that's $15, so you're already up to like $27, and then the next trip you get 3 paperbacks at $12 each, so that's $36. So it's kind of like that deal. So again, you do have the 10% discount, so minus whatever percentage of the discount. So you want to spread it over multiple trips so that you're not spending so much money in one go. But again, spend $40 to at the very least break even with the premium membership price. The second tip is to look at how many times you go on average in a year and spread your spending over these trips. So this is related to the first one and just in general as well. So as an example, for me, I tend to go around one of my friend's birthdays, around my birthday, and then around my sister's birthday, and then at least once around Christmas. So that's like 4 times a year. And then maybe like a 5th time in like January. So that's like 4 to 5 times on average. So I would only have to spend about like $10 per trip to break even. And just in general too, it's like if you're going even 3 times a year, you can break down like the 40, and you can looking at this, spending at least 40, you can break it over those 2 to 3 plus strips. And also, if there's a specific book you find on one trip, then you can save it for like the next trip. Like you can read a little bit, maybe borrow it from the library, and then if it's something you really like, you can get it the next trip you go. So there's that to consider, because if you're going multiple times a year, the books are going to still be there. They're not going anywhere. I mean, yes, people are buying them, but usually they keep certain books in stock, and they keep quite a few of the books in stock and then replenish the shelves once it's getting low or once they're out. So there's that. The third tip is to use the app and the website. You have free shipping. So download the Barnes & Noble app, go to the Barnes & Noble website, and then order online, because sometimes your local Barnes & Noble might not have a specific book you're looking for or a specific volume in a series. I need water. Excuse me, I need water. So you can very easily just look it up on the Barnes & Noble app or on the website and purchase it from there. And again, you have free shipping. So you have free shipping along with the 10% discount. Is this the fourth one? 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth one is to shop at Paper Source. So Barnes & Noble owns Paper Source, and that means that the same, like you can buy Paper Source products, I think, from the Barnes & Noble app and website, I think. But you can, if your Barnes & Noble has a Paper Source close by or next door, go to that Paper Source and buy your stationery. So buy like pens, notebooks, etc., other stationery, stickers from Paper Source. Because then, again, you're getting the 10% discount, and you're also still utilizing your Barnes & Noble Premium membership by shopping at Paper Source. Now, the next one is the fifth one, and this is sort of related. And that is to focus more of your notebook, pens, and stationery purchases to Barnes & Noble and Paper Source. Now, Barnes & Noble will have more of the pens and notebooks, and like that's book related, or maybe art related, whereas Paper Source is more like stationery and crafts. So focus a lot of those, like I said, purchases for stationery, for crafts, to Barnes & Noble, because again, utilizing your discounts and utilizing your membership, and that'll add to your rewards and your stamps. So the sixth one is to shop any bookish gifts or any crafting gifts or stationery gifts through Barnes & Noble and Paper Source. Again, same thing, so I'm not going to re-explain that one. And then the seventh one is to try to buy enough to make the $10 threshold. And the reason, try to buy enough to make the $10 threshold. And this is because the 10% discounts can bring you under the $10 threshold depending on the amount. So if I think I gave a similar example in last week's video, but if you're getting a book that's, let's say it's like $11.99. Maybe you're not getting a book. Maybe you're getting like a couple bookmarks, and then it adds up to like $10.99, and the 10% discount would be like $1.09. That would bring you to $9.90. So each time you go there, try to buy enough so that you make the $10 threshold. So you want to focus on anything that's like at least $11 at the very minimum, preferably around $12, because then $12, the discount would be $2, and then you would be at the $10. And again, taxes included, so it might not be exactly like this, but you want to try to meet the $10 threshold. So you want to try to get enough so you can meet that. And then the next one, I think this is number 8. Yeah, this is number 8. So, and that is to find the closest store with a cafe. Now, not everyone has a close Barnes & Noble with a cafe, but look at your map, look at Apple Maps, look at Google Maps, or whatever your Maps app is. Take a look at it, see if you can find a Barnes & Noble close enough to you with a cafe. And if you do, you want to get at least $12. Like I said, you kind of want that minimum to be $11 to $12. And usually that means a drink and a food item. And that usually meets the $10 threshold for a stamp. And sometimes you can, depending on the size of the drink you get, so you might want to get like 2 food items. So something I do, if it's later on in the day and I don't feel like a large drink, is because usually I get a caramel frappuccino. So usually I'll get a medium one, and then I get I'll get like a brownie and a cookie, or I'll get 2 cookies. That way I can meet the threshold, including the discount, and then that way I can get $10. So if you're gonna get like a large drink, then maybe get like 1 food item. Or what might help is if you get to, like, if you and your friends combine, like let's say you only want a drink and then your friend wants a drink, usually you can combine and get over the $10 threshold. So, but again, not everyone has a Barnes & Noble close enough with a cafe, so it is okay if you do not have one. That is just something that if it's within reach, if it's easily accessible, then that is something to use to best utilize this. But if it's not easily accessible, then this is not a good tip to utilize. But I am lucky enough, like I mentioned, I'm roughly in between two Starbucks, 2 Barnes & Nobles, one of which does have a cafe, and then even though this isn't super close by, there is the Barnes & Noble at the Grove, which does have a cafe. So I have a couple relatively within a relatively good amount of distance, even though the one at the Grove is a bit of a further drive. So the next one is, this one isn't super necessary, but it can be useful. So the next one, number 9, tip 9, is to save up rewards for a bigger haul, like a birthday haul, or a Christmas haul, or other holiday haul, or maybe like a New Year haul. Again, this one isn't super necessary, but let's take me for example. My birthday's in November, and usually my rewards technically officially renews in March. So I have between March and, well, mine auto renews. So let's take the first year I did it, which was last year. So I got mine, or not last year. Was that last year? I don't remember. So I got mine in March. So that meant I had between March and November to build up rewards. And I set mine up for auto renew. I still save my rewards to get part 2 of the Magic Knight Rareth 25th anniversary edition manga, but so I didn't save up for my birthday, but I would have that amount of time: March to April, April to May, May to June, June to July, July to August, August to September, September to October, October to November. And about 8 months to build up rewards, which can be quite a bit. And again, this isn't super necessary, because even if you only have $5 in rewards and you want to use that at your next purchase, that's still $5 off of that purchase. But it can also be useful to save rewards for a bigger haul, because if you want to kind of splurge a little bit around your birthday and you got some birthday money in a Barnes & Noble gift card, then the amount you save up can add to a bigger haul. So again, not a super necessary tip, but it can be useful in certain circumstances. So the next one, number 10, is to set up auto renew for your membership if you go often enough. Again, if you go often enough. Now, this can also be useful, like me, if you're trying to save up for a specific item and it's kind of taking longer than a year, which is the membership, then you'll want to set it up for auto renew so that you don't lose your reward savings. And that is because if you don't have it set up for auto renew, and the time for you to renew it expires, then you'll lose any rewards that you build up. So that's why if you're trying to save up for something big, then try to set it up for auto renew, and that way, this is again if you're trying to save up for something big, like I mentioned, or B, if you go often enough. Because if you go often enough, you don't want to think about like, oh, I need to renew my membership, especially if you're just automatically assuming at a certain point, like, okay, I get 10% off. So it's better to set it up and not have to worry about it than to not set it up. But again, this is if you go often enough. Because if you don't go often enough, then maybe it was good for that year, but maybe you don't need it again, and you still get the stamps collection, the same stamps collection for the regular rewards that you do with the premium membership. So the next one, number 11, is the next two are related to the auto renew. So the next one, number 11, is that if you don't want to set up auto renew, be aware of when your membership ends, because usually they'll start asking you like a month before, like, hey, your membership's going to expire next month, and did you want to renew it? But be aware, because again, if you're trying to save up, then you'll want to use the savings. If you don't want to set up auto renew, you'll want to use whatever you have saved up so that you don't lose it. Because it's one of those things where, like I mentioned in the beginning, yes, you want to spend $40 to at least break even, but if you have a bunch saved up and you lose that, like if you have, even if you only have like 5-10 saved up and you lose that, that's like $5 to $10 free dollars that you could have used, free money. So just be aware of when the membership ends, that you can know like, okay, I have X amount saved up, I need to use it by X date. And then the next one is, again, if you don't want to set up auto renew, but you want to keep any rewards you've built up, go in person to your local Barnes & Noble, and talk to staff about renewing it 1 to 2 months in advance. Again, they usually start asking about the month before. So in my case, mine ends in March, so they would usually, if I didn't have it on auto renew, they would usually start asking me in February, maybe even late January. Hey, I see your membership ends in March. Do you want to renew it? Do you want to set up auto renew? So that's usually their spiel. 14, 15. Okay, so this is 13, and this one I feel like it's more like being nice to staff, you know, but don't be afraid to engage with staff at your local Barnes & Noble and being nice to them, because they're working, they're there to do their jobs, they're there to help you. But you can ask them questions, mention someone who helped you, and ask for their names too, because that means a lot, because usually it's like, hi, bye, but it's like, hey, like, what's your name? And then you can mention, like, if you're checking out, you can mention, oh, so-and-so helped me out, help me find this book in this section, or so-and-so asked me if I needed help and I really appreciated it. So mentioning how nice they are. If you see them a lot, like there's one gal that I see practically every single time I go, and she's usually in the cafe, working in the cafe, and I think she has my order memorized by now, somewhat memorized, at least my coffee order. I just had a big cough, so I'm okay. But anyway, I see her all the time, and I always try to make sure to say thank you, have a good day, because I see her a lot, and there are certain staff members that I see a lot. So they'll remember you better if you're nice to them and engage with them. It doesn't have to be like a full-blown conversation, but it can be a simple, hi, thank you so much, I'm just browsing, like, yada, yada, yada. So it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a super flowery conversation. So the next one is tip number 14. So tote bags from Barnes & Noble make a great way to package/deliver gifts while also being a gift. So this is something I'm doing. It's not necessarily a Barnes & Noble tote, but I got a tote at the Frankenstein event pop-up, and I really liked the Frankenstein event, and I really liked the movie. I have so many totes, and I know my friend would appreciate that more. So I'm going to deliver her presents in that tote to her, as well as having it be a present. So Barnes & Noble, at least the one that my local Barnes & Noble. Jeez, I'm still a little stuffy. Okay, sorry about that. My local Barnes & Noble, the one that I usually go to in Calabasas, I think Studio City has something a little similar, but they have a section when you enter the Calabasas one and you go to the left of the escalators, there's a little section of like a lot of stationery stuff, and there's like a couple sections with tote bags. So you can pick one up based on what person in your life, a friend, relative, etc. likes. Use that to deliver their gifts and be like, oh, the tote bag's for you as well. Whew. I'm just starting to recover from being sick, so that's why it's still a little bit congested. So the next one, number 15, tip 15, is you don't have to buy books to add them to your TBR. Let me rephrase that. You don't have to buy books to add them to your TBR. Start off the library and then buy books you love from Barnes & Noble. So again, thoughtless consumerism. Thoughtful consumerism. We're trying to go for thoughtful consumerism here. And yes, we want to best utilize our membership and any rewards we save up, but it's one of those things where if you're just buying books and you end up either A, not reading them, or B, not enjoying them, then it's like you could have used those rewards elsewhere, or you could have used your discount on a book you liked more. And again, it's totally fine to buy books that you haven't read yet, and it's just about being mindful with your purchases and not just buying books to buy books and not just buying books because you have a 10% discount. So you can start off at the library and then buy books you love, or you can realize, okay, I don't like this book, so I'm not going to purchase it from Barnes & Noble. So the next one is, again, to avoid Amazon. Again, if you have the capability and the option to avoid Amazon, download the Barnes & Noble Nook app to your e-reader. And an e-reader can be anything. An e-reader can be your iPad. It can be your phone. It does not have to be an e-reader specifically. It does not have to be a Kindle or a physical Nook from Barnes & Noble or Kobo. It can be your phone or your iPad. It does not, again, we're trying to be mindful about our consumerism and our purchases here. So download the Nook app, the Barnes & Noble Nook app, and then you can buy ebooks from Barnes & Noble and it'll show up in the Nook app. So that's a good way to avoid Amazon. Again, if possible. And then number 17, tip 17, is to utilize sale days and double/triple stamp days. They don't do this all the time, but they'll have it like at least 2-3 times a year. Two times at minimum, sometimes 3 times, where they have like sale days of like 50% off hardcovers or 50% off select hardcovers or select books. Or if you're like into games and puzzles, they'll have like 50% off of games. They'll also have like double or triple stamp days where instead of getting 1 stamp for every $10, you get 2 stamps. So that can really add into your rewards, especially the double or triple stamp days. And the triple stamp days, instead of 1 stamp, you get 3 stamps. So try to utilize those, and sometimes they're in person and you can't go in person, but try to see if it can be an online thing, because usually, more often than not, it is for both in person and online purchases. So just try to keep an eye on that, and that's what makes having the Barnes & Noble app useful, where if you open, you can just check it someone regularly and see like, oh, they're having like a double stamps sale until this time, let me get XYZ. And it might not seem like it, but if you order through the Barnes & Noble app or through the website, it will register, it will see that you bought it during this double stamps run or the discount. If you're buying it for the double or triple stamps days, it will see that you bought it on one of those days and apply that amount of stamps, even though it won't seem like it immediately. Boy, I'm trying to I enjoy making content, which is why I'm still doing this. It's a little harder to talk right now. Especially I want to talk, it's easier to talk, but it's still a little bit hard to talk. So the last tip is tip number 18. You don't have to buy the special editions because they're special editions, Barnes & Noble or otherwise. Now, that might be a little bit hard to hear, but just because it's a special edition does not mean you have to buy it. And that's sometimes hard for me to hear, because there's a set for, it's a Barnes & Noble exclusive set for Lord of the Rings series, The Hobbit, and Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion, and I would love to have that set. However, right now I do not. I mean, I have in my bookshelf reset, you saw that I had put my Lord of the Rings and Hobbit books on a specific shelf on my desk, so it's literally right next to the, what's the distance? It's literally this far away from my phone right now. So it's like I don't have a set for, or I don't have a space for a whole new set of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, even though I'm building up to that. And that's not my finest point. That's not my finest moment. But I do want to collect The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and that is just because it's had such a big impact on my life, and plus in this political era, it makes a statement because it's anti-fascist. Anyway, I'm not gonna go there right now, but it's one, you do not have to buy a special edition because they're special editions, like I mentioned, and usually because one, they're a little bit pricier and it might not be within budget. Two, you might not have the space. Like I mentioned, I do not have the space for another full set of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And three, is it something you really actually enjoyed? Because the way I go about special editions, especially now, is it a series that I have actually loved and enjoyed? Now, a good example for me, other than Lord of the Rings, is the Heaven Officials Blessing series. Now, for that one, I got the full series and read it through, and then they're doing the special hardcover edition with beautiful artwork. I love it so much, and I was really wanting that even before I had finished it, but I knew I was gonna love it, so I kind of already decided I was gonna get it. But I wanted to finish the full thing before actually 100% committing to getting the special hardback editions, because we have lost all semblance of special when it comes to special edition. And at this point, I think it's really started because of Fourth Wing and Colleen Hoover books and Harry Potter, and it's gotten to a point where none of these special editions are really special, and none of them are really, they're distinguishable from each other, but at the same time they're not, because it's gotten to a point where once you have so many quote-unquote special editions out, then it's no longer special, because at that point it's just another edition. And with all of my Lord of the Rings ones and Hobbit ones, the only ones even though I called it like a Barnes & Noble special edition, I don't know, did I call it special or exclusive? At that point, I would only consider it a Barnes & Noble exclusive edition without really considering it in a special edition, because I have so I have two different sets of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and then I have a third edition of The Hobbit, and then I have three other editions of Lord of the Rings. And I have, let's see, Unfinished Tales. I have two editions of Unfinished Tales. I have two editions of the Silmarillion. So it's to a point where it's like, it's not special. It's just a different edition. So if something is a special edition or marketed as a special edition, then you really have to think about, like, okay, is it really a special edition, or is it just another edition of the book? And if it really feels special to you, then I think it should be because you really like the series, and that's what makes it special, and then it's had a big impact on you, like with me and Lord of the Rings. And then even I would argue Heaven Officials Blessing has had a big impact on me, because I feel like that's what's gotten me back into anime again, even though it's not like traditional Japanese anime. It's like, is it called donghua? I would need to look up the terminology. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so it's Dongla. But it's what got me into kind of that animated genre. I had another coughing fit. I apologize about that. Remember, kids, stay hydrated, especially if you're sick. So, what got me into that style of animation again, even though they're different, it got me into that style of animated series again and watching it again. So, in that sense, having Official's Blessing has had a big impact on me, and I love, and the books too, the novels, have gotten me back into reading again and more actively enjoying reading again. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this out now because I keep having coughing fits, which means I'm talking too much. So, like I mentioned at the beginning, if you have any other tips or tricks for best utilizing a Barnes & Noble premium membership, please comment down below. I'd love to see all the ways you best utilize the membership if it's different from mine. So, with all that said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.